The Velteron orbital scrapyard floated like a metal graveyard at the edge of known space. Broken ships, dead satellites, and discarded parts from 1,000 different worlds drifted in organized chaos. Maya Chen wiped grease from her hands and stared at the massive wreck before her. It was ugly. Most people would not give it a second look. The ship was half buried under collapsed metal beams and torn hull plating. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly. Then died. 3,000 years old, according to the scrapyard database. The datapad in Maya's hand displayed its designation. Epsilon Cradle. Origin. The architects. A civilization that vanished before humans even discovered fire. Still looking at that piece of junk? Maya turned to see Chix, her supervisor. The Velteron's forearms crossed over his chest in a gesture of annoyance. His skin shifted from blue to irritated purple. "It's not junk," Maya said quietly. Chix laughed, a sound like grinding gears. 17 different species have scanned that wreck, human. Engineers from the Trell Dominion. Scientists from the Cierne Collective. Even the quantum mines tried to interface with it. You know what they all found? Nothing? Exactly nothing. Dead power core. Fractured hull. Systems so old, they are incompatible with every modern technology standard. It cannot be repaired. It cannot be salvaged. It is worthless. Keeks's voice carried the certainty of someone stating basic facts. Maya looked back at the ship. Other people saw a broken wreck. She saw something different. The hull fractures formed patterns, like the ship had tried to heal itself. The symbols were not random decorations, they were instructions, or maybe a language. The way the remaining intact sections curved suggested incredible engineering. Something elegant, hidden beneath the damage. "How much for salvage rights?" Maya asked. Chix's skin flashed bright orange in surprise. "What? I want to buy the salvage rights." "How much? Are you insane? You make barely enough credits to afford food and shelter. That thing would cost you." Chix checked his datapad. His eyes widened. 3 months of your salary. Nobody wants it. So the price dropped to almost nothing. But still, 3 months? For that? Maya had been saving money to visit her family on Earth. She had not seen them in 2 years. The credits in her account represented holidays. Hugs from her mother. Her father's cooking. But she looked at the ship again and felt something pulling at her chest. "I will take it," she said. Cheeg stared at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head and processed the transaction. "Your funeral, human. When you realize it is worthless, do not come crying to me." That night, Maya stood inside the Epsilon Cradle for the first time. The airlock had taken an hour to manually open. Inside, the corridors were dark except for her portable light. The ship smelled old, like metal and time and something else. Something organic she could not identify. Every surface was covered in the glowing symbols. They pulsed occasionally, like a heartbeat struggling to continue. Maya ran her fingers over them. They were warm. How could they be warm after 3,000 years? She made her way to what looked like the control center. The room was circular, with curved walls covered in displays that no longer worked. In the center stood a pedestal with a crystal interface, cracked, but still intact. Maya pulled out her tools and began running diagnostics. Her scanner showed nothing, just like all the previous scans. But Maya did not trust scanners alone. She had learned to use her hands, her eyes, her instincts. She noticed something the scanners had missed. The ship's systems were not broken, they were asleep. Every component was connected in a way she had never seen before. Modern ships used hierarchical systems. One main computer controlling everything. This ship was different. Every part could communicate with every other part, like a nervous system instead of a machine. "Self-repairing architecture," Maya whispered. "You were designed to heal yourself." The moment she spoke, something happened. The symbols on the walls flashed bright. The crystal interface glowed. Screens flickered to life around her, displaying information in the architect language she could not read. A sound filled the room, not mechanical, but almost like breathing. Then a voice spoke. It was soft, ancient, and filled with something that sounded like hope. The words were not in any language Maya knew, but she felt their meaning somehow. The ship was not speaking to her ears. It was speaking to something deeper. The message lasted exactly 2.3 seconds. Then, everything went dark again. Maya stood in the silence, her heart pounding. She pulled out her recorder and played back what she had captured. The symbols, the sounds, the brief moment of life. "You are not dead," she said to the empty ship. "You are just waiting for someone who understands." She sat down on the cold floor and smiled. Cheeks thought she was crazy. Everyone thought this ship was worthless. But Maya had just heard something no one else had heard in 3,000 years. The Epsilon Cradle had chosen to speak to her. Now she just had to figure out why. 6 months passed like a dream Maya refused to wake from. She moved into the scrapyard permanently, sleeping in a small compartment inside the Epsilon Cradle. Her coworkers thought she had lost her mind. Even chicks stopped checking on her after the first month. But Maya was not crazy. She was learning. Every night, she studied fragments of architect culture from old databases scattered across the galaxy. Most species had ignored these records. They were looking for weapons technology, faster engines, powerful shields. They found none of those things, so they stopped looking. Maya looked deeper. She read about architect philosophy, their art, their way of thinking. They did not build things the way modern civilizations did. Modern species created tools to control their environment. The architects created tools that worked with their environment. You do not force a river to flow backward. Maya read from a translated text. You learn the river's nature and build according to its wisdom. She began to understand. The ship did not need new parts. It needed the right conditions to heal itself. The first breakthrough came on a cold morning in the scrapyard. Maya had been studying the ship's bioneural gel, a strange organic substance that ran through channels in the walls like blood vessels. It was dried and cracked, appearing completely dead. But under her microscope, she saw something incredible. The gel's cellular structure was still intact, just dormant. It needed nutrients, something to wake it up. Maya tried everything. Chemical compounds from the scrapyard inventory, synthetic growth serums. Nothing worked. Then, almost by accident, she spilled her morning coffee into a sample dish. The gel absorbed it instantly. It turned from gray to pale green. It moved. No way. Maya breathed. She analyzed the coffee. The organic compounds, the specific combination of acids and sugars. The gel was responding to something earth-based. She spent 3 days testing different substances. Bioluminescent fungi from a waste hauler made the gel glow. Resonant crystals that other species used as decorations created harmonic frequencies that made the ship's metal hum. Nothing she used was valuable. Everything was considered trash by galactic standards. But together, they were exactly what the Epsilon Cradle needed. Word spread through the scrapyard. Engineers came to watch the crazy human talk to a dead ship. The Trell, masters of mathematical precision, examined her work and declared it illogical. The Seern, perfectionists in every field, said her methods were inefficient and random. But the ship was healing. Slowly, section by section, the Epsilon Cradle came back to life. One evening, a group of Trell engineers stood outside the ship, their mechanical eyes scanning Maya's progress. You cannot repair a ship with coffee and mushrooms, their leader stated. This violates every principle of engineering. Maya emerged from the airlock, covered in bioneural gel and smiling. Your principles only work for ships you understand. This ship thinks differently. Ships do not think. This one does. As if responding to her words, the symbols on the hull pulsed with warm light. The Trell engineers stepped back in surprise. Their scanners showed nothing, but their eyes could not deny what they saw. The ship's AI began communicating more frequently. Maya had named it Epsilon, and over time, she started understanding its language. It did not use words the way other species did. It communicated through images, emotions, and patterns that appeared in her dreams. Epsilon showed her memories of the architects. She saw tall, graceful beings with crystalline skin who moved like water and thought like music. They built cities that grew instead of being constructed. They created ships that were partners, not tools. One night, Epsilon showed her something that made her cry. The architects had not gone extinct through war or disease. They had simply evolved beyond physical form, leaving their ships behind as gifts. Gifts for species that would eventually grow wise enough to understand them. You waited 3,000 years, Maya whispered to the empty control room. Why did you choose me? The symbols on the walls formed patterns. Epsilon showed her images of different species examining the ship over centuries. All of them had scanned for technology they could take. None of them had tried to understand. None of them had cared about healing something broken. Humans were different. Humans saw potential in ruins. They found beauty in imperfection. They refused to give up on things others had abandoned. Maya was a nurturer, someone who created and healed, rather than just consumed and discarded. 3 weeks before everything changed, Keeks visited Maya in the ship. His skin was a worried shade of gray. Maya, we need to talk. What is wrong? The consortium trade fleet is coming. They bought rights to this entire sector. They are building a new shipping lane. Keeks's voice was gentle, apologetic. The scrapyard will be demolished in 3 weeks. Everything here will be destroyed, including your ship. Maya felt ice in her stomach. I am sorry. I tried to argue, but the consortium owns everything. Even if your ship was working, which it is not. It is working, Maya interrupted. What? Not completely, but it is close. Epsilon is almost ready. Cheeks looked at her with his large eyes. Ready for what? Maya smiled. But there was determination in her expression that Keeks had never seen before. To show the galaxy what they have been ignoring for 3,000 years. That night, Epsilon revealed its true purpose. The images that filled Maya's mind were not of weapons or shields or engines. They were of peace. The Epsilon cradle was not a warship. It was something the galaxy had never seen before, something it desperately needed but did not know existed. Maya had 3 weeks to finish the work. 3 weeks to prove that sometimes the most powerful thing in the universe is not a weapon at all. She got to work. 2 weeks remained until demolition. Maya had not slept in 3 days. The Epsilon cradle hummed with life now, its corridors glowing with soft light. The bioneural gel flowed through the walls, like healthy blood. Every system was responding, learning, remembering what it was built to do. Cheeks stood beside Maya in the control room, watching in amazement as the ship's displays came fully online for the first time in 3,000 years. I do not believe what I am seeing, he whispered. Maya touched the crystal interface. It was warm and pulsing with energy. Epsilon, show us. Show us what you really are. The entire room filled with light. Holographic displays appeared, showing the ship's true design. Maya and Keeks watched as Epsilon revealed systems they had never imagined. Not weapons. Not shields, in the traditional sense. Something completely different. What is that? Cheeks pointed at a massive array that seemed to generate a field around the ship. Maya read the architect symbols, her understanding growing with each passing second. Her eyes widened. It's a reconciliation engine. A what? A ship designed to make violence impossible. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A human had activated an architect ship, the first working architect technology in 3,000 years. Every major faction wanted it. The scrapyard became chaos. Ships arrived from every corner of known space. Military vessels, corporate cruisers, research ships. They all demanded access to the Epsilon cradle. Chicks activated the scrapyard's defensive shields, but they were designed to stop debris, not determined fleets. Maya stood on the ship's bridge, watching dozens of vessels surround them. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. Epsilon. Explain the reconciliation engine to me. Everything. The AI responded with a flood of information. The field the ship generated would disrupt all weapon targeting systems within its range. Explosive reactions would be neutralized at the molecular level. Kinetic weapons would encounter gravitational cushions that absorbed their impact. Energy weapons would disperse harmlessly. Within the ship's field, violence became technologically impossible. Conflicts could only be resolved through words, negotiation, cooperation. The architects were not weak, Maya realized aloud. Everyone thought they went extinct because they could not defend themselves. But they chose peace. They evolved beyond the need for war. Chix's skin flickered between colors, confusion, fear, hope. If this technology becomes public, every government in the galaxy will try to control it. Or destroy it, Maya added quietly. The consortium arrived first. Their sleek corporate vessels demanded docking rights. Their lawyers transmitted documents claiming salvage rights through obscure regulations. A representative appeared on the communication screen, a polished Velteran in expensive clothing. Miss Chen, the consortium recognizes your discovery. We are prepared to offer you citizenship, a luxurious position, and substantial compensation. In exchange, you will transfer all rights to the architect vessel. Maya's jaw tightened. No, this is not a negotiation. We own this sector. The ship is legally ours. The ship is alive. You cannot own a living being. The representative's smile was cold. We can, and we will. Comply or face legal destruction. Before Maya could respond, another ship arrived. Then, another. A mercenary corporation offered her billions of credits. A peaceful research collective begged her to donate the ship to science for the good of all species. Everyone wanted the Epsilon cradle. Nobody asked what the ship wanted. On the 13th day, the Korvash war fleet arrived. Maya recognized their ships immediately. Massive, brutal vessels designed for a single purpose. The Korvash had been fighting the Thel Combine for over a century. Millions had died. Entire worlds were scarred. The Korvash admiral's face appeared on the screen. He had scars across his face and eyes that had seen too much death. Human, I am Admiral Vorak. I will be direct. My people need that ship. We need weapon superiority to end our war. Give us the architect technology, or we will take it by force. Maya stood tall despite her fear. It is not a weapon. Everything is a weapon if used correctly. Not this. This ship was designed to prevent war, not win them. Vorak laughed. But there was no humor in it. Prevent war? There is only one way to prevent war: total victory. You have 48 hours to surrender the ship. If you refuse, I will destroy this entire scrapyard and everyone in it. Your co-workers, your supervisor, you, all of you, will die. The screen went dark. Chix turned to Maya, his skin pale white with terror. What do we do? Maya looked at the holographic displays showing Epsilon's true purpose. A ship designed to make peace, surrounded by those who only understood violence. She had 48 hours to find a solution. She could surrender and let the technology be twisted into something it was never meant to be. She could refuse and watch everyone she cared about die. Or she could do what humans did best: find a third option nobody else had considered. Cheese. How long would it take to make this ship flight ready? Maybe 30 hours if we work nonstop. But Maya, where would we go? They have war fleets. Maya smiled, and it was the smile of someone who had just had a crazy idea. We are not running away. We are going to show them what this ship can really do. How? By taking it directly into their war. Kix's skin went through 6 different colors in rapid succession. That is insane. Probably, Maya agreed. But it is the only way to prove what Epsilon really is, not by telling them, by showing them. She turned to the crystal interface. Epsilon, can you do this? Can you stop a war? The symbols on the walls pulsed with warm, confident light. The answer was clear. That was exactly what the ship was built to do. 24 hours remained. Maya worked without stopping, her hands moving across the ship's controls while Kix coordinated with the small crew of scrapyard workers who had volunteered to help. Nobody believed the plan would work, but they believed in Maya. Final systems check complete, Cheeks announced, his skin shifting to nervous yellow. The ship is flight ready. Maya, are you certain about this? Maya looked at the star map, displaying the disputed zone, the region of space where Korvash and Thel Combine fleets had fought for 3 generations. It was a graveyard of destroyed ships and shattered dreams. I am certain, she said quietly. She opened a communication channel to Admiral Vorak's flagship. His scarred face appeared on the screen, expecting surrender. Admiral, I have a proposal. Vorak's eyes narrowed. Your time is running out, human. I will not surrender the ship, but I will demonstrate what it can do. Give me permission to enter the disputed zone. Let me prove that this technology is worth more than any weapon. Sentinel side. End quote. End quote. Sentinel side. End quote. End quote. End quote. You want to fly into an active war zone? Yes. If I succeed, you will understand why this ship should never be used as a weapon. If I fail. Maya took a breath. Then, you can take the wreckage and do what you want. Vorak studied her for a long moment. Finally, he laughed a harsh, bitter sound. You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. Very well. You have one chance. But when you fail, your life is mine. The Epsilon cradle left the scrapyard for the first time in 3,000 years. Maya sat in the captain's chair, her hands trembling on the controls. Kix stood beside her. Along with 3 other scrapyard workers, a Seern engineer named Tess, a young Trell technician called Mir, and an elderly Velteran named Cass, who had worked in the scrapyard for 40 years. I cannot believe we are doing this, Tess muttered, her crystalline fingers dancing across a console. Believe it, Cass said with a grin. For once in my life, something interesting is happening. The ship moved smoothly through space, its ancient engines humming with power that felt alive. Epsilon guided them, showing Maya the way through instinct rather than instruments. Ahead, the disputed zone appeared. Even from a distance, they could see the flashes of weapons fire, the explosions of dying ships. There, Mir pointed at the tactical display. A major engagement. 70 Korvash vessels against 80 Thel Combine ships. Maya's heart pounded. Epsilon, are you ready? The ship's symbols glowed in response. Ready. Then let us show them what peace looks like. The Epsilon cradle entered the battlefield. Immediately, every weapon in the zone locked onto them. Korvash and Thel Combine forces both saw an unknown vessel and prepared to destroy it. Maya watched missiles launch, energy beams charge, kinetic cannons aim. Epsilon. Now. The reconciliation engine activated. A field of shimmering energy expanded from the Epsilon cradle in all directions, covering the entire battlefield in seconds. The effect was immediate and absolute. Missiles stopped mid-flight, their guidance systems confused and helpless. Energy weapons dispersed into harmless light. Kinetic rounds encountered invisible cushions and drifted away slowly. Every targeting computer on both sides displayed nothing but error messages. The battlefield went completely silent. 150 warships hung motionless in space, their weapons useless, their crews stunned. For the first time in a century, the disputed zone was peaceful. Maya opened communication channels to both fleets. "This is Maya Chen of the Epsilon Cradle. Your weapons cannot function in this field. Violence is impossible here. But dialogue is not. I invite both commanding officers to board this ship for the first face-to-face negotiation in 80 years. She held her breath. Would they accept? Or would they retreat and regroup? A Corvash transport detached from Vorak's flagship. Moments later, a Thel Combine shuttle launched from their command vessel. They are coming, Keeks whispered in disbelief. The meeting took place in the Epsilon Cradle's central chamber. Admiral Vorak entered first, his military uniform perfect despite decades of war. The Thel commander arrived moments later. Commander Shess, a being covered in adaptive scales that shifted color with emotion. Currently, they were dark red with suspicion. The two enemies stood 3 meters apart. Hands near their weapons, even though those weapons would not work here. Maya stood between them. "Thank you for coming. I came to see what trick you are using," Vorak growled. "No trick," Maya said. "This ship was built by the architects, specifically to create spaces where conflicts must be resolved peacefully. You can fight for another 100 years, lose another 1,000,000 lives, and nothing will change." Shess's scales flickered to confused orange. "Why would you help us? This is not your war. Because I have seen what war does. And because this ship showed me that there is always another choice." Epsilon's walls began to glow softly. The AI projected images not of battles, but of Corvash and Thel worlds before the war. Beautiful cities, families, children playing, all the things both sides had lost. Vorak's hard expression cracked. His voice became rough. "We cannot forget what they did. We cannot forgive what you took from us," Shess replied. "I am not asking you to forget or forgive," Maya said gently. "I am asking you to choose something different than more death. The ship can translate your words, help you understand each other's emotions. It was designed for this. Let it help." The two commanders looked at each other, really looked for the first time in their lives. Vorak slowly removed his hand from his weapon. Shess's scales shifted to cautious green. They sat down at opposite sides of the chamber's table. The negotiation began. 6 hours later, both fleets received the same message. A ceasefire agreement had been signed. Neutral mediators would be appointed. Peace talks would continue under the protection of the Epsilon Cradle's field. The first formal end to hostilities in a century. Maya watched from the bridge as both fleets began to withdraw peacefully. She felt tears on her face and did not wipe them away. "You did it," Chick said softly. "You actually did it." Then the emergency alarm sounded. A message appeared from the scrapyard. The consortium had lost patience. They had seized control, imprisoned all remaining workers, and issued an ultimatum. Return the Epsilon Cradle immediately, or the hostages would be executed. Maya's moment of victory turned to ash. Vorak appeared on the communication screen. For the first time, his expression was respectful. "Human, you showed us there was another way. Now let us show you the same. We will help you save your people." Shess joined the channel. The Thel Combine agrees. For the first time in a century, Corvash and Thel will fight together. Not against each other, but for something good. Maya smiled through her tears. "Then let us go, save some lives." The combined fleet arrived at the Velteron orbital scrapyard like a storm made of hope. Corvash warships flew alongside Thel Combine vessels, former enemies now united. At their center, the Epsilon Cradle glowed with soft light. its reconciliation engine already active. The consortium security forces saw them coming and panicked. "This is Consortium Security Director Ven," a voice crackled over the communication channel. "You are entering corporate property illegally. Turn back or face consequences." Maya sat in the captain's chair, calm despite the fear in her chest. Behind her stood Kiex, Vorak, and Shes, three beings who should never have been in the same room, now working together. "Director Ven, release the hostages immediately," Maya said clearly. "Absolutely not. Surrender the architect ship, or we execute them. One by one." Maya nodded to Epsilon. The ship understood. The reconciliation engine's field expanded to cover the entire scrapyard. Inside the scrapyard, chaos erupted in the consortium command center. Director Ven stared at his console in disbelief. Every weapon system showed red errors. The energy barriers holding the prisoners failed harmlessly. Even the doors stopped locking properly. "What is happening?" he shouted. His security chief looked terrified. "All combat systems are offline. Weapons will not fire. Restraints will not hold. Sir, we have no way to enforce our demands." Through the viewports, Ven watched the combined fleet surround the scrapyard. Not attacking, just waiting. Dozens of ships that could have destroyed the facility, choosing not to. A transport ship docked at the main airlock. Ven ran to confront whoever was boarding. But he found his security forces standing aside peacefully. They had no working weapons. There was no point in fighting. Maya Chen walked through the corridor with her unlikely allies. Workers from the scrapyard followed behind her. Freed prisoners, looking both confused and grateful. "You cannot do this," Ven said weakly. "The consortium owns legal rights. Your legal rights do not include taking hostages," Maya interrupted. "You have two choices, Director. Leave peacefully with your ships and crew, or stay and face justice from every faction you just threatened." Ven looked at the Corvash Admiral and Thel commander standing beside a human mechanic. The impossibility of it made him realize he had already lost. "Safe passage?" he asked quietly. "Safe passage," Maya confirmed. Within an hour, the consortium vessels departed, leaving the scrapyard forever. That evening, Maya stood on the Epsilon Cradle's bridge and made an announcement that would change the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species watched on their communication screens. News networks broadcast her words across every inhabited world. "The Epsilon Cradle is not a weapon," Maya began. "The architects left their ships as gifts for civilizations wise enough to understand them. Today, I am sharing that gift with everyone." We said. Aren't from leader. AMFC. Everyone. She displayed holographic schematics, complete technical specifications for the reconciliation engine. Gasps echoed across communication channels. She was giving away technology worth trillions of credits. Technology that could reshape galactic politics. "Anyone can build these systems," Maya continued. "The architects designed them to be reproduced. But they only work if you understand the philosophy behind them. You cannot use these ships to dominate others. You can only use them to create spaces where conflicts must be resolved peacefully." Chick stepped forward beside her. "The Velteran orbital scrapyard will become a training center. We will teach engineers, diplomats, and mechanics from every species how to build and operate reconciliation ships." Vorak spoke next, his voice carrying hard-earned wisdom. "The Corvash military commits to building 3 reconciliation stations in our space. We fought for a century. We will spend the next century building peace." Shess's scales glowed warm blue. "The Thel Combine agrees. Our scientists will work with former enemies to create a network of peace zones throughout the galaxy." Maya smiled. "We are calling it the Cradle Network. Any species can join. Any world can participate. Together, we will transform the places where we once fought into places where we must cooperate. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species after species volunteered. Some were skeptical, but many were desperate for alternatives to endless conflicts. The scrapyard became the center of the greatest collaborative project the galaxy had ever seen. 6 months later, the scrapyard looked completely different. What had been a dumping ground for broken things was now a center of learning and creation. Engineers from 50 different species worked side by side. Training facilities occupied rebuilt sections. Construction bays assembled new reconciliation ships using architect principles. Maya walked through the main workshop, watching a young Trell student carefully mixing bio-neural gel under Kiex's supervision. In another section, a Seern engineer taught a group how to read architect symbols. Everywhere, beings who once ignored each other now shared knowledge freely. Cass, the elderly Velteran who had worked in the scrapyard for 40 years, approached Maya with a smile. 20 new students arrived today, from 7 different species. They all want to become nurturers. Nurturers? Maya repeated the word Epsilon had taught her. That is what they are calling themselves. Builders of peace. Healers of broken things. Cass's skin glowed with pride. You started something beautiful. Maya Chen. That evening, Maya returned to the Epsilon cradle. The ship hummed contentedly, its purpose fulfilled and expanding. Maya sat in the captain's chair and looked at the star map. Dozens of green indicators showed locations where reconciliation ships now operated. Conflict zones becoming cooperation zones. We did it, Epsilon, she whispered. The AI responded with warm pulses of light and a feeling that was unmistakably joy. Maya thought about the journey. A broken ship everyone ignored. A human mechanic who saw potential instead of junk. The crazy idea that the most powerful thing in the universe was not a weapon, but the ability to make weapons unnecessary. She pulled up the first lesson she had written for new students. Never trust the initial scan. Look deeper. Everything broken can be rebuilt into something beautiful. The galaxy is full of discarded potential waiting for someone brave enough to see it. Outside the viewport, a new reconciliation ship launched from the construction bay, the 5th one built that month. Its hull glowed with architect symbols, its bio-neural systems alive and healthy. Kiex entered the bridge, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Maya. 2 broken things, he said, raising his cup. Maya smiled and raised hers. To the people who refused to give up on them. They drank together, watching as their impossible dream continued to grow. The Epsilon cradle had waited 3,000 years for someone who would understand. Maya had been working in a scrapyard, ignored by a galaxy that judged value by first impressions. Together, they had proven that sometimes the most extraordinary things are hiding in the places nobody bothers to look. And the galaxy would never be the same.